Rod Stewart, what if the thing you spent your entire life building turned out to be the one thing that almost destroyed you? Not the career, not the fame, not even the money, but the chase itself, the relentless, never-ending pursuit of the next big thing. That's what nearly cost Rod Stewart everything that actually mattered. Now here's what makes this story different. We're not talking about a man who crashed and burned. We're not talking about a cautionary tale of drugs, debts, and disaster. We're talking about one of the most successful rock stars who ever lived. A man who sold over 250 million records, who played to stadiums packed with screaming fans for more than 5 decades. Sitting down at 80 years old, and finally admitting something that most people in his position never have the courage to say out loud. He got a lot of it wrong, and the lessons he learned? They didn't come from the music. They didn't come from the fame. They came from cancer, from silence, from hotel rooms at midnight, and from phone calls he wishes he'd made years earlier. So let's talk about it. Because this isn't just Rod Stewart's story. In many ways, it's all of ours. Here's something most people don't know about Rod Stewart. He never actually set out to be a rock legend. Growing up in North London as a working-class kid, his one burning dream was simple: play for Arsenal. Football was everything. Music just sort of wandered into his life, while he was busy planning a completely different future. Then Maggie May happened. Almost overnight, the world knew his name. Record labels came knocking. Concert promoters started calling. Photographers followed him everywhere. Fans waited outside his hotel. And Rod, this ordinary bloke who just wanted to kick a ball around, suddenly found himself standing in front of thousands of people every single night, riding a wave he never even saw coming. And at first, he absolutely loved every second of it. Who wouldn't? Imagine growing up with nothing, and then suddenly the world is cheering your name. It feels like winning the lottery every night. The adrenaline is real. The joy is real. You pinch yourself just to make sure this is actually your life. But then something shifts, and it happens so gradually that you barely notice it until it's already too late. Rod remembers one particular night vividly. The concert had been incredible. The crowd was electric. Every single word of every single song sung right back at him. He came off stage buzzing, absolutely flying. Then he walked back into his hotel room, closed the door, and the world went completely quiet. No band, no audience, no laughter, just him and the hum of an air conditioning unit somewhere in a city he could barely remember the name of. He sat on the edge of the bed and thought, is this really what success feels like? Now here's the thing about fame that nobody tells you before you get there. Everyone assumes you're surrounded by people all the time. And in a way, you are. There are managers, musicians, journalists, security teams, fans pressed against the barriers outside. But loneliness doesn't care how many people are standing in the room with you. It can find you anywhere. Even in the middle of a standing ovation. Rod spent years chasing a feeling. Not money, not even fame anymore, but that original rush from when it all first began. That electric sense of surprise and possibility. The problem? No matter how many stadiums he filled, the feeling never quite came back the way he remembered it. And instead of stopping to ask why, he just booked the next tour, planned the next album, kept moving, kept running. Because here's what nobody wants to admit: sometimes staying busy is just another way of avoiding yourself. He became so good at performing happiness that he started forgetting what real happiness actually felt like. Every time someone asked how he was doing, out came the grin, the laugh, the story that made everyone in the room roar. Rod Stewart had to be the life of the party. That was the deal. The problem is, when you wear a mask long enough, you eventually forget what's underneath it. Meanwhile, back home, something was quietly slipping away. The missed birthdays, the anniversaries that got rescheduled, the promises made to children standing in doorways. I'll be back before you know it. I'll make it up to you. Just one more tour, one more album, one more year. He genuinely believed there would always be time later. He thought he was doing the right thing. providing for his family, building something they could be proud of. But here's what age teaches you, and it teaches you hard. Your presence is worth more than anything you could ever buy them. Children don't count your platinum records. They don't care about the capacity of the venue you sold out on a Tuesday night in 1978. They remember whether you were at the dinner table, whether you made it to the school play, whether you were there when they actually needed you. And there were moments Rod missed that he will never, ever get back. He's not looking for sympathy when he says that. He's just being honest in the way that only people who've truly reckoned with their past can be. Then came the moment that changed everything. He walked into a doctor's office, expecting a routine checkup. Nothing dramatic, just another item on the to-do list, between a sound check and a press interview. He figured he'd be in and out before lunch. Instead, the doctor looked at him and said they'd found cancer in his thyroid. Now, most people hear that word, and their mind immediately goes to the darkest possible place. But Rod's first thought, and he'll be the first to admit this might sound strange, wasn't about dying. It was about his voice. If they operate, what happens to my voice? That might seem like vanity. But understand this. Singing wasn't just his job. It was his identity. He'd been doing it for so long, in so many countries, to so many people, that he genuinely didn't know who he was without it. You take away the voice, you take away Rod Stewart. And that terrified him more than anything else he'd ever faced. The surgery happened. The doctors were honest with him. There were risks. They couldn't make guarantees. Outcomes vary. He nodded along like he understood. Inside, he was absolutely terrified. And when he woke up on the other side of it, his voice wasn't waiting for him. He had to go looking for it. Alone at home, no crowd, no band, no one watching, just Rod, standing in a room trying to hit notes he'd sung effortlessly for 50 years. Sometimes nothing came out right. Sometimes his voice cracked halfway through a line he could have sung in his sleep. Those moments were harder than any bad review, any canceled tour, any professional setback he'd ever experienced. Because this wasn't about the audience anymore. This was about him. It took months. Months of patience, frustration, practice, and more quiet moments of doubt than he'd care to count. But slowly, gradually, the voice came back. And when he finally stepped back onto a stage after all of it, he wasn't thinking about ticket sales, or chart positions, or what the critics would say. He was just grateful he could open his mouth and hear a song come out. That's it. That simple. That profound. And that gratitude changed him. Before the surgery, he was always looking forward. The next album, the next stadium, the next milestone. After it, he started actually looking. At his children, at the people around him, at the quiet moments he'd been sprinting past for decades without even glancing at them. He discovered something unexpected. He quite liked slowing down. When you're young, you think slowing down is the same as giving up. It isn't. Sometimes slowing down is the first time you actually notice that you have a life worth noticing. He started spending more time at home, more time with his kids, more time doing absolutely nothing, and finding out that nothing felt like everything he'd been missing. He has a wonderful bunch of children, and watching them now, the pride is real and deep. But so is the honesty. Because he understands now that for too many years, in too many ways, they got whatever energy was left over after the world had taken what it wanted. That's not fair. He knows that. He owns it completely. But life keeps moving whether you're ready or not. And as Rod got older, the phone started ringing with a different kind of news. You know that feeling when you look at your phone screen, see a familiar name, and before you've even answered, something in your gut says, "This isn't going to be good." He knows that feeling now, better than he ever wanted to. When he got the news about Jeff Beck, it hit him somewhere deep. They'd known each other for decades, grew up in the same part of the world, chased the same dreams, somehow ended up living extraordinary lives neither of them could have imagined as kids. They laughed together, argued the way old friends do, played music together, shared history. Then one day, Jeff was just gone. And here's the part that never gets easier. You never know which conversation is going to be the last one. Nobody tells you to pay closer attention, because this particular Tuesday is the final time you'll be in the same room together. Life doesn't give you that warning. It just carries on, and carries on, and carries on, and then suddenly it doesn't. Rod says that if someone had told him in advance that a certain visit would be his last chance to see Jeff, he would have stayed longer, talked more, had one more drink, lingered just a little. Instead, life moved fast, the way it always does. As the years pile up and the farewells become more frequent, you start to understand something that no amount of fame or fortune can teach you ahead of schedule. Time is the only currency none of us can earn back. Not with money, not with talent, not with ambition. Once it's gone, it's gone. And that's why Rod doesn't leave important things unsaid anymore. He picks up the phone instead of telling himself he'll call next week. He shows up instead of sending a message. He sits at the dinner table instead of checking what flight he needs to catch in the morning. Because he's learned, the hard way, the real way, that one day next week simply stops arriving. When people ask him how much longer he'll keep performing, he smiles and says as long as people still want to hear him. And he means it. He still loves the stage. Still loves seeing faces light up with recognition when the opening chords of a familiar song ring out. But the urgency is different now. He doesn't need to prove anything. The scoreboard isn't what it used to be. The greatest moments in his life right now? They're not stadiums. They're family meals, football matches on the sofa, grandchildren who couldn't care less that their granddad once sold out Madison Square Garden. They just want him there, present, actual. If you'd told a 30-year-old Rod Stewart that those would become his most treasured moments, he probably would have laughed, ordered another round, and changed the subject. But that 30-year-old hadn't learned what 80 years actually teaches you. He measures his life differently now. Not by gold records or chart positions, but by faces. Some still here, some gone. Some he misses every single day. That's what the years become eventually. Not a timeline of achievements, but a gallery of people. And none of those achievements, not one gold record, not one sold-out arena, will ever sit beside your hospital bed. None of them will call just to check how you're doing. None of them will hold your hand when a day turns difficult. People do. Only people. So if there's one thing worth taking from Rod Stewart's story, from a life this full, this complicated, this honest, it's probably something he wishes he could whisper to his younger self, the kid with the wild hair and all the confidence in the world. Don't rush so much. The next concert can wait. The record can wait. The people waiting for you at home, they can't. Chase your dreams. Work hard for them. Be genuinely grateful for every door that opens. But don't get so caught up constructing the idea of a life that you forget to actually live one. Because the most important song you'll ever leave behind isn't the one on the radio. It's the one people remember you by, long after you're gone. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Not tomorrow. Today. Because Rod already taught us what happens when we keep saying we'll get to it later.